All right, everybody. And now look, I told you guys before, you've been listening to the podcast, you've been loving the interviews, and I told you before, I'm going to stick to the streak of people I know you're going to find interesting, people I know that you're going to love because I find them interesting and I love them, and I know you're going to love them as well, especially this cat right here. Now, I started doing comedy in 1986. And when I was learning how to do comedy and I wanted to try to do comedy, there were people I watched on TV. I wanted to see who the best people were and try to figure out how the art form worked. This person, this gentleman, was one of those people who I enjoyed then and enjoy now. Mr. Shydner, please introduce yourself to the audience.
My name is Ritch Shydner. I started doing comedy in 1977, professionally in 79, and I'm still doing it some fashion today.
And it's really weird. People always talk about, you see people have these generational battles all the time. Generation Z sucks, right? They stink.
I hate
Generation
that.
X blows. That's my generation. They stink. They suck. Baby boomers, they don't know nothing. But I'll be honest with you, when I think in terms of comedy generations, I always think of comedy generations as 10 years.
Right? That's right. So do I. As a matter of fact, so do I. I agree. It's not 20. The normal generation is 20, but comedy's 10 years. I totally agree with you.
And so you are one generation above me stand-up wise, because I started in 86. What I wanted to find out, that's why I brought up the generational thing, because I wanted to point this out. Technically, I started during the comedy boom. So in comedy, I'm a boomer. You started you started right before the comedy boom, so you're a pre-boomer.
Pre-boomer. Yeah, it's
and
true.
It astounds me because I you have your younger relatives. My younger relatives, my nephews, literally, when I told them about the days when I used to go to the record store, because I love going to the record store and picking up the albums and smell the thing and talk to people and meet friends, they literally sat at the table. I'm not even kidding. Laughed me from my living room table, followed me to the basement, and laughed at me while I was doing laundry. You went to the record store, loser. I'm going, oh my God. Right? So my generation, when I started, I didn't know what a comedy boom was because that's just what it was. Right. I want to find out from somebody who was actually, you were a good comic before the comedy boom even started. So what was it like for you doing stand-up in the 70s, moving into the 80s? It had to be, because I know what my hell gigs were like. I can't even imagine what your hell gigs were like.
Yeah, I would work anywhere and anything. I would do any place. That was the struggle, was to find a place that I could do stand-up comedy. So they have these, singer-songwriter nights at a pub, and I was living in Washington, D.C. I didn't care. At one time, my friend Howard Vine, who was sort of like my classmate at the law school, but he was also my friend, and he was my agent at the time. He says, I got a place. There's a talent night down at the Gay Cabaret down in Southwest Washington. Now, it's 1977. We were so clueless. We thought Gay Cabaret like the Flintstones, a gay old time, or the gay 90s, something. Mm-hmm. We didn't get it, and we get there, and of course, it's a gay nightclub. And the manager's really nice. Says, hey, look, fellas, normally, yeah, you're right, but once a month we do ladies' night. Now again, we're so clueless. We think ladies' night, perfect. We'll be the only guys there. We didn't get it, man. I go up, but I didn't care. I would go in front of anybody, any place. I needed the stage time. That's what you have to do, right? As a comic, you got to get stage time. Mm-hmm. So I went up from this room full of lesbians, and I was bombing so bad. I mean, yes, Anthony, when you're lowering the temperature of the room, I mean, you could just see them just going like, and at one point, and Howard had to remind me, I just blurted out, I guess I'm your worst nightmare. And I got a little bit of a laugh, but I was so clueless at the time. I didn't know that was the only laugh I was going to get. I should have taken that and thank you, good night, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's it. But I think it's encouragement for me to do more. So I continue talking. I won't say doing comedy because I was just talking. There was no laughs involved. And this woman from the audience stands up. She walks to the stage, gets up on the stage, takes me by the elbow, doesn't say a word, and just leads me off the stage, just like a mercy killing. That was it. Just, and I didn't care. I'd go anywhere. And I'd go, a friend of mine had a band down in Georgetown. They'd go and playing in a bar. And when the band would take a break, I'd jump on stage and try to do comedy. Anywhere. Most of my work when I first started getting work was opening act. Blues Alley. I opened up for like Tony Williams, these jazz guys. I opened up for at the Cellar Door, to Bayou, all these venues in DC. I'd open up for whatever band, rock bands, jazz singers, whoever, didn't matter.
Now let's not gloss. You mentioned something in passing when you were telling the story. You just went law school, and then you just jumped over law school. How the hell are you? What are you, Evil Knievel? You got in your bike and jumped over law school like that? Wait a minute.
Um, I saw, I thought it was kind of freakish. I never told anybody. I certainly wouldn't tell anybody. It's not something you talk about in stand-up comedy because it's just, you're just kind of weird. Like, what are you doing here? You mean so I wouldn't tell anybody I quit law school to go do comedy. And then the first time I met Franklin Ajayi, Franklin was opening up for Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway got so drunk the first show that they had to flip-flop the order, and Franklin closed the second show, but he hung out in between shows. We hung out in his dressing room and he talked, and I don't know how it happened. Andy Evans was a comedian who was with me at the time. Andy is a DC comic. And Andy, I get maybe blurted out. I was going to law school, and Franklin was, me too. I quit law school to do this. And from then on, I was like, man, this guy's so great. I said, I don't have to worry about it, man. I didn't tell anybody, but I didn't feel so bad.
Yeah, he just like you. He's one of my favorite comics because
Franklin Ajayi.
Jesus Christ, yeah. I mean, he said because I watched him, easily one of the smoothest comedians I've ever seen in my life. A third of my audience is in their 20s.
Yeah.
Young people.
Yeah.
You go look up Franklin Ajayi. I want you, in fact, go back and look up. He did a spot on the Robert Townsend special about well, I don't want to I want to mess it up because if I even describe the bit, it's about sex and God and calling the name. Yeah. And I'm sitting going, and you're sitting there going, he's one of those guys where you think you're good, right? Right. Man. I want to ask you this. This is something I call, and excuse my language here, comedic ass whipping. And that's when you're sitting there and you start to get good. Yeah, I'm good. You get to the point where you know pretty much what's going to happen when you go on stage, and then you watch somebody and they send your behind right back home to the notepad with shoe marks across your face.
I had early on, we did not know. I was in Washington, D.C. I was working. I met a couple of guys, Lewis Black. Then there's a bar opened up called El Brookman's down in Southeast D.C. And all these comics gravitated to them. We were young, and I don't know anybody's doing it anywhere else in the country. This is pre-internet. This is 1978, 77, 78. And a friend of mine, she says, there are young comics doing this. There are comedy clubs dedicated to this up in New York City. So she takes me up there, spend a weekend, couldn't get a Catch a Rising Star, couldn't get into improvisation, went over to the comic strip. And you're sitting there, and I'm sitting there going, every comedy comes up, I go, I'm funnier than this guy. I'm just sitting in my mind going, yeah, I got this guy clocked. Okay, this is no problem. I can do this. I can make it. And then the last comic goes on. His material is so good. His delivery so smooth. It was a young Jerry Seinfeld. And I went, I'm going back to DC to do some work. And it's Gilbert Gottfried, right? I mean, when I first moved to New York in 79, I had to follow him. Almost every night I'm following him. So everything he would do, this guy Tony, from Brooklyn. Tony from Brooklyn, right? Why'd the moron throw the clock out the window? Because he's a fucking moron. Are you listening to me? I just told you why I threw it out. He's a fucking moron, right? He would just do these, breaking down these old jokes, and you'd go up afterwards going, "Have you ever noticed?" And you'd look like Tony. You'd look like a parody. And so I went down to the East River one night after watching Gilbert and following him again, and burned all my notebooks. I just burned them all. I said, I got to start over. I just got comedic ass whipping is a good way of putting it.
Oh, you know who gave me the worst beating I've ever had in my life? And I was a huge fan of him then. I wasn't even on the show. This is how bad I got whooped. I'm doing the show in Philadelphia. I'm at a show in Philadelphia. Emo Phillips shows up. Okay, so I'm there. I'm like, oh man, I got to get down to. I wasn't even working that night. I said, I got to know one thing. I'm definitely working that night. This is incredible. I'm a huge Emo fan. I have his cassette in my hand. Nicest guy in the world. I'm literally nicest, greatest guy, sweet guy. Signs the cassette. I know his act now because I love this guy. I knew his special. I knew his album. He goes on to the show. He does an hour and 10 minutes of material that's not on the album, that's not in the special. Rip the place in half. They add a second show. He does the second show, he does material that's not from the first show, not from the HBO special, and not from the album. And I'm sitting there with my little 35 minutes thinking I'm sitting there going, oh, it's like, God, oh, am I even a comedian?
I totally get. Hold on, I want to show you something. Hold on a minute.
Oh,
I haven't shown anybody this.
uh-oh.
I can't get it up there. I'm going to have to drop this background. Let me drop this stupid background.
Mhm.
Man,
I was
I was going to show you this doll. I'll show you this doll. You can't really see it.
Mhm.
You know who that is? Can you see it?
Yes. Oh my God.
You know who that is?
Nipsey.
I ain't afraid of you motherfuckers.
Oh, Bernie. Oh, okay. Because his head keeps disappearing.
It's a bobblehead.
Okay, there we go. Okay, his head kept. It's like I keep seeing the shirt.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So before he broke out with Def Jam, I'm in Chicago working this place, the Funny Firm. Sometimes it ain't amount of time.
Ooh.
And the Funny Firm was a lot of shows. Every week they're doing like 14, 16 shows, right? Place was packed. It was a hot club. And he comes in, he said, I gotta do a couple minutes of time. I've been working on some stuff. Yeah, man, no problem, man. He only did like 10 minutes, but he rearranged the DNA of the audience. I'm the headliner, and I'm like going, man, I had to dig out of Bernie for 10 minutes to get him like forget Bernie was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in the next, and I gotta do 10, 10. And then he said, and we're talking afterwards. And he goes, "Oh, Don, you saw me. What do you think? I think Bernie should wait till next week before you come back here. That's what I think. I think you make me work too hard, man."
Oh,
but he was a great guy. But he was a guy who was so powerful. His presence was so powerful that in 10 minutes he would change the audience. He would just change the audience around.
Not only did he have that thing, but he was also a big dude.
Oh, no, physically. I'm a big guy. Bernie was much bigger than me.
Yeah, so it's like I'm sitting there going, yeah, because I was surprised at how big because I'm 5'8". Okay, so I'm not exactly dunking on people. And I ran and usually and it was really weird because I would see these people, and it was hard to explain to people that aren't comics when you get to the point where you're good at it, and then you'll see Andrew Dice Clay or Tim Allen show up, and and you're going, oh, you're going, oh, and that was the weird thing. But I was always curious about that because I know that like you said before, you started before the boom, so you had to take, the first year of comedy is basically hazing. You're getting a vicious beating for 365 days because you don't know what you're doing yet. Because you know what I mean. You walk into the place and the guy's wrapping the cord around his hand, standing with the microphone, and can't modulate the person's voice yet, and it's just a vicious beating. But your beating had to be worse than my beating because the comedy boom hadn't started yet.
There were no comedy clubs all over the place. There really weren't. There were 3 clubs at that time in California. Of course, I knew nothing about them. There were 3 paying professional comedy clubs. Then one opened in Garvin's in Washington, D.C. in 1979, January 79. That's the first paying comedy club east of the Mississippi.
Wow.
The other ones were just in California. But so there were no comedy clubs everywhere. There were no showcase clubs. There was New York City had 3 showcase clubs. LA had 2. And that was it. Boston, there was a scene in Boston, Ding Ho. Then we had a scene in Washington, D.C. at El Brookman's. There was the Comedy Workshop down in Houston. Philly had the Jail. There were a couple of clubs in Chicago. There were a couple cities, about half a dozen cities outside of New York and L.A. that had scenes. But other than that, it was you made your own place. Look, I once went into a guy, he had a pizza shop. He had a pizza place. My neighborhood. Guy was immigrant, could hardly speak English. I talked to him and let me do a comedy show there while people are eating pizza.
Oh, well.
coming out. And they're like, look at me, what is he doing? I had my friend had one of those little pig nose amps, with a mic to it. I just said like this little thing, I'm holding this thing up and talking. They're like, what is this guy? Religious nut? What is he doing? It was baffling. I'm looking for an audience. I'm harassing people. I'm harassing strangers who are locked down. If they stayed still for 5 minutes, I've turned them into an audience.
Oh, you're bringing up bad memories. I'm having bad flashbacks here, man. I think we've all had done the karaoke microphone show.
Yeah, and I did that. I didn't do the street. Charlie Barnett did that when I moved to New York City. I saw Charlie Barnett. A friend of mine said I was broke and said, "Well, you can get on busk. You can get down there and do shows in Washington Square Park in New York City, and there's all these entertainers down there. I didn't have the personality, but I didn't have the knowledge ability. I'm down there and people are looking at me like, what, do you have any drugs to sell? Because I don't know what you're talking about. I'm down at, and then I look across the park and I see this crowd gathering, and I can hear from across the park, I can hear the laughter. You know, you hear the laughter echoing across. I said, somebody's doing something funny over there. And I go over and look around. I can't find the guy. First day I look up, he's up in a tree. He's up on a tree limb. And he's got names for everybody. He's got 50 people around him. And he's got every one of them named. He's got nicknames for everybody. And he's playing them like the plate spinner, man. He's just playing them, They're doing crowd work like I've never seen. I went, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going back in that inside. I'm looking for a club.
we have to
got this thing.
We got to know where to put our flower, because some flowers don't go in some pots. You know?
Yeah, no, I didn't have that personality, man. I didn't have it.
Now, when the comedy boom happened, did you see that wave coming? Because that was a tsunami when it happened. It was ridiculous.
I felt it, but I didn't know at the time. Look, I'm down in the second like playing really paid comedy club for money was the comic strip opened up in Fort Lauderdale in 1980. So I get down there with Kelly Rogers and my first wife Carol Leifer and Mark Schiff and Joe Bolster, and we're down there in a comedy condo, right? So Kelly calls me over and he says, this guy's on the phone. Whatever he asks, tell him you can do it. So the guys, I'm from Ottawa. The guy said, I've got a club up in Ottawa, Canada, and I want you to come up here and do comedy next week. Can you do 2 45-minute shows, 2 separate 45-minute shows? At the time, I could do 25 if they bought everything I did. If they laughed at everything, it was 25. If they didn't laugh at a 15-minute show, that's what I had. I said, yeah, I could do that. And so I go up there and I pulled it off, I pulled it off. I wrote like crazy. I did crowd work. I did it. And then at the end of that week, he's paying me. He says, there's a guy on the phone in Montreal wants to talk to you. Exact same thing. Can you come to Montreal? I went to Montreal. The guy, same thing. End of the week, guy says, guy from Toronto. So I went out 1 week, right? In January of 80 or whatever it was. I came back like a month later, a headliner. I mean, the club started popping up like crazy. I mean, once Bill Hicks and I went out it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma City. I don't know which one started first. We were supposed to do 2 weeks. We ended up doing 6 or 8 weeks on the road because clubs kept opening. They kept sending us to the next club. And clubs are opening like all the time. So before you got there, you were there right when it was starting to turn. You know what I mean? It was like 86, 87. There was just a glut. There was just so many clubs, so many comedians coming into the business.
Well, there was one really good comedian that came in 1986. I'm just saying. That guy was damn good. I'm just saying, I was completely shocked because I didn't know that was a boom. I was spoiled in a way because there were the two main comedy clubs when I started was the Comedy Works owned by Steve Young, the Comedy Factory Outlet with Clay Heary. And I worked both clubs. I can say now that I worked both clubs because you weren't supposed to back then, but I'm 52 now, so the hell with it. And you can't do anything to me now.
Isn't that funny how that happened everywhere? Everywhere that happened. If you work for them, you can't work for us.
And no one actually said it. They just kind of, we really need you to be here. Did you put my mom down? No. You see how have this pencil to your mom's neck. I'm just saying you might want to work this club, but but it was so weird because they were down the street, and I had never. I just remember literally, I could work both of those clubs. Like I said, I can tell now I work both clubs. Screw it, and they can't do anything to me now. So after 30 years, and there was I worked so many South Jersey bars. You would show up and they just give you can you do 30 minutes? I'm like, yeah, okay, you do 30 minutes. And they give you the famous comedy club owner handshake with the $75 in the hand. They always shook your hand with the money in it. And I'm sitting there going, I would have done this for free. You just gave me $75. Yeah. And it was weird. I mean, if you fell asleep with your mouth open in 1986 and 87, when you woke up, there was a comedy club in it.
It's so true. It's so true.
And I just couldn't imagine. But I gotta ask you this. This is because, like I said, I've been a fan since the Canyon Man days. So I've got to know. Damn it, I've got to know the Tonight Show. You get your first Tonight Show spot. Now, kids, third of my audience, 20 somethings. When you got the Tonight Show when Johnny Carson was on it, that's like the finger of God coming down and tapping you on the forehead. That was the real deal. There's really, it's hard to explain to someone who wasn't around for that what it was like when the man, this was the guy. This was Morpheus here,
Yeah.
So you get your first Tonight Show spot. What is it like when you're sitting there, you're doing your thing, you good, you're working, you're headliner, you got the skills, and then all of a sudden, it was Mr. McCauley was there when you got it, right?
Right.
Okay.
84, the Olympics came to Los Angeles, and I didn't want to be there. I knew it was going to be a problem with traffic, even worse than normal one. Tourists in the clubs that couldn't speak English. I just smelled it coming. I didn't want to be there. So I said, I'm going back to New York City. And Sam Kennison was a friend of mine at the time. And he said, I'll go with you because I've never been there before. I said, they're going to love you in New York. So we went there. And I was, I never approached Macaulay. I never approached any of those guys because I was taught that when I first got out to Los Angeles. People said, look, don't bug those guys. They'll find you. They'll be watching you. And sure enough, man, I was on stage in New York Improv, and Macaulay had left LA too. There was nothing happened. So he said, I'm going to go to New York and see if I can find some comics there. He came there, saw me have a hot set, and said, I'm going to put you on the Tonight Show in 2 weeks. Let's figure out what you're going to do. I said,
2
all right.
weeks?
Yeah, that's it. That was it, man. It was August, and it was like 2 weeks later I was on. And I tell you, it is very stressful. I broke out in shingles. I was shingles, man.
I was 30.
Lord. I was 31 years old, and I go in to the doctor. He says, "How old are you, man? That's an old man's thing." I go, I got some things on my mind.
Wow. Oh, I mean, that has got. I mean, I'm just imagining you sitting. Because like people don't understand when you got that show what that meant. It's like it's like getting drafted into the NFL.
That's what it was. It felt like you were in. You felt like you were in, and you got better representation, and people started looking at you differently. You got that sort of showbiz stamp of approval. That's what it was. There were only 3 networks on. He was the only show on that time of night. Mm-hmm. Either watch him or you'd watch reruns on 2 other networks. That's all it was. Man. There was no cell phones. There was no YouTube. There was nothing else to watch, man. That was it. Either watched him or you watched each other. You stared at each other in the living room.
And nobody even dared wasting their money putting something opposite them, because why spend money to watch your show get crushed?
They tried over the years. They put Joey Bishop on as a talk show. They tried over the years. They put different people on to try to take him down when they thought they could. He was just the king. That's all there was to it. Who took him down was Arsenio. Arsenio showed that it was over. Arsenio came on and he took the whole youthful demographic, and that made Johnny look old. And that's when they kind of, okay, we're going to get a successor in there. And then Leno came in. Mm-hmm. But it was Arsenio was the one, his show, and Joan Rivers had tried before him, and he became one of the kind of guest hosts they brought in when Joan left to sort of do it for a while. And then they gave him his own, syndicated show. And I did Arsenio show. That was, you used to do Johnny and nothing else. But at that time, I could do Arsenio and do Johnny. Mm-hmm. And but that's what showed the network that it was over for Johnny.
When you did the, because you just said shingles, because I mean that. Most people don't have that type of stress. They just, with something that where there's not a physical danger to them. Like if a pit bull's running towards you, that's scary.
I'm gonna be honest here. The cocaine and the alcohol might have added to the stress. The cigarettes, the cocaine, the alcohol might have added to it. I'm not sure.
You put a little extra in the gas tank, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to win the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're backstage, I just, because when you're playing a club, like say you go to a different city, it's a top club, you've never played it before, you got booked, but you really, even though you got the gig because you sent the tape or somebody called, you're still auditioning for the first show is your audition. You know that.
Yeah, it's just.
So you're standing there, and I know I've stood behind curtains tens of thousands of times and looked out going, okay, it's like. And you know how your heart rate just drops back to normal the second you walk out there and you step, because you go, I do this. This is what I do.
Right.
But before that curtain's opens, it's like somebody's hanging you off a ledge going, I said, give me the money. But you are behind the curtain. And you go, this next comic coming out, a new comic.
You can't hear. Yeah, I don't remember being able to hear it. It's just a muffled thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're watching. There's a guy going to pull the curtain open, and he's looking at you with that kind of like, "Don't mess up, man." He's kind of. I've seen a lot of guys come through here. Some of them didn't come back. He like open that curtain. But you're right. As soon as it open, you walk out. You start going, "Okay, here we go." But before that, you're like that roller coaster where you're going up.
Man.
You're like, "Come on, just get it up there. Let's go. Come on." It was surreal. That's what it was. Because I grew up watching that show on TV, and then all of a sudden I'm there, and I'm like, "This is." I didn't expect it when I first started. When I first started doing it, I was just trying to get laughs. I didn't have any kind of plan. I didn't.
Now you do the set. I saw the set, obviously. So you smash the place. You turn your head to the right. Okay. Right. So what do you see when I'm assuming he gave you, because I saw the set, so he had to have given you the okay. Yeah, I figured.
First set's this. That's what you get, right?
Yeah.
But I was lucky. I wasn't Stephen Wright, Roseanne. Some people who went, I don't know if Roseanne went to the couch, but maybe Stephen Wright did right to the couch.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go right to the couch. I was happy to get this. Rodney Dangerfield's good. Just give me one of these. That's all I want. I'm okay. That's all I want. So I got one of those, and I was happy. Couldn't have been happier. And they go back behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. They hand me a beer. They're like, Jim McCulley's there. Fantastic. McCulley's happy because it's his job on the line too. Mm-hmm. So he's so happy you killed. Hands you a beer and they go, stand over here. And so, comics were like 12 o'clock. And the show is an hour long. So it starts 11:30, 12 o'clock, midway point. They bring out this new comic, right? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm going to stand up to the side there for the next 20, 25 minutes, whatever, and wait for the shows to get over. And then you're standing on the route that Johnny takes every night, the same route, backstage to go up to his office. So you're standing there at a particular spot they have for you to do your little meet and greet with Johnny backstage, get a picture taken, and that's it.
Man, okay. So I'm assuming because I remember a friend of mine got Letterman. We were all in the contest. I got to the finals. I didn't win the contest, Bill. Anyway, I know he's going to be listening. So he got Letterman, and we're all sitting. We're in Philly because he went off to New York. I was like, okay. So we're all sitting there, and we're watching him on the television in the bar. And we're watching, and we're like, we literally looked at other people in the bar talking. Hey, shut up. Our friends on Letterman, shut your mouth. And the whole bar, oh, your friends on Letterman. So did you go run off to find the television set to watch it live? Well, watch it recording.
The improvisation in Los Angeles, the improvisation in New York, both had televisions over the bar. Mm-hmm. Really, just to watch comics on the Tonight Show. Mm-hmm. So that went on, and everybody shut up. So I'm at the Los Angeles Improv, and everybody knows I'm going to be on. So 5 of or whatever it was, they turn that TV on. Johnny comes back from commercial. Everybody in the bar shuts up, and they watch your set. And it's just surreal moment. I'm watching me perform on the Tonight Show in a bar full of people who are just also watching it. And then afterwards, you get your congratulations, and everybody's, it's what everybody. It's like it was it's like you graduated. Like, okay, you graduated. You've graduated another level.
Well, the funny thing about it is the simple step you showed up meant you killed. Because if you bombed your ass off,
yeah, you wouldn't show up. You're right.
Yeah, it's like, look, we know you killed because you're here.
Yeah. That guy. He bombed and he still showed up for the improv viewing.
Hey, you guys want to see how bad I sucked about an hour ago? Check that out. About 5 hours ago. Check that out. Because I just imagine how cool that was to do. Because I the stuff that I did. I mean, it didn't hit me that millions of people were going to see it until halfway through my set, and I'm going, oh my God.
Yeah,
it's gonna be about 5, maybe 2. In the show I did was maybe too many people. So I'm going, oh my God, and it's like with this stuff here. I know a lot of people are gonna listen to this, but I've been doing this for so long that it's like, it's just fun. But that monster was that the thing that really, because I know you also did HBO, and once again, youngsters, when Ritch did HBO One Night Stand, that's. That was once again, that was a tent post in your career, a monster. These are monster things to do. Now, when you did the Tonight Show, I mean, like, I'm assuming like when you do the Tonight Show, when you do an HBO special or something like that, much like when you go on the road, it's the greatest hits package.
Yeah. The Tonight Shows are weird because you pull maybe one joke from a bit, or you pull these things together and kind of glue them together with these weird segues. You just did a joke about water skiing, and you go, "Hey, I get my hair water skiing, and my dad hates it when I had long hair when I was a kid." These weird segues to get into the next bit. So you're right; it was the greatest hits package, and I wish I had approached it differently. I wish I had approached it as just like another 30 minutes of tape. Like I go, I would do 30 minutes and just not worry so much about how everything laid out end to end and the greatest hits package. I don't know. That's just the way it was, that for the HBO thing and for the Showtime thing. And I when I got the Letterman, I was a little bit better about being looser about, just like this is a block. I'm just doing this block, and I'm not going to worry about putting a lot of different things in greatest hits package.
That's the thing that's the problem I had when I originally went to Los Angeles, and I was doing the Laugh Factory, and I made the mistake of on one specific audition of I want to show my diversification. I want to show how diverse I am, so I'm going to hit 85 topics in this time period and show them. They don't want to see that crap. They want to go. They want to look at you and go, "Listen, we have a sitcom. Do you fit in it or do you not fit in it?"
It is, everybody makes that mistake at some point. And I tell young comics, if you got an audition, they say you got 8 minutes, plan 6. Just plan 6 material and let the other 2 minutes be laughter and you being personable, you being yourself. Because when you're trying to get too much in, you end up rushing everything. You don't really let your own personality come through. I've made that mistake too. I've made every mistake you can possibly make.
Isn't it the funniest thing in the world when you're doing an audition like that you don't get?
And they got to see everything I do. I got to compress, like you said, 80 jokes into 3 minutes.
I'm going to show how smart I am.
That's all it's all about anyway.
Speaking of string theory,
the whole thing is showing how clever I am. Aren't I clever? Mommy, ain't I clever, mommy? Aren't I clever, little boy?
I've seen so many comics literally get mad at the audience when they made a reference the audience couldn't possibly get. It's like, this, that, and the other. I'm going, dude, you have a master's degree in this specific subject. You're an engineer. These people don't get what you're talking about. Only reason I got what the guy was talking about is because I'm kind of a nerd in that way. But other than that, I'm going, dude, they don't know what the hell. You don't know string theory? Dude, calm down.
You got to read the audience, man. You got to read the audience. Sometimes you watch the other. That's all you watch the other comics ahead of you for, just to get a read on the audience. Mm-hmm. And some nights, you know what I mean? It's just like set the mower low and cut the grass. Don't get fancy. Nothing over one syllable. Everything's one syllable tonight.
Oh, you've done those gigs where I've done gigs where I hate when you do a bunch of gigs with audiences are just eating up everything you're saying. It's too easy. You get cocky. You're like a team that's up 3-0 in the playoffs, and you just expect to sweep the next time. And you get blown out in front of your hometown. And so you go to a place and you go, they love everything I do. Then you go to those clubs, and this is something that comics know that audience members don't know. You can kill in a room, and it can feel different. One time, it's very, very easy, very fluffy, easy. And there are times when you still kill, but you realize you're dragging a boulder to get every single laugh. From the audience perspective, if someone watching, they think it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's not. Sometimes you go back to the room like those disgusting comedy condos that smell like a. What's the worst comedy condo you've ever been in? I mean,
well, there was a place in Palm Beach. It was unreal. It was really just unreal. It was like it had that mildew stank to it. It had a swamp cooler. Those swamp coolers, right? Where it's just a fan blowing over a tank of water. It was built from old helicopter parts from Korean War. It was noisy. It made noises. I don't even think there was a toilet. I think there was a toilet seat, but I looked down, I could see the ground down below it. Everything just went. I don't think it was hooked up to the sewage system. And it just, everything in the place stunk. It just had a funky stink, mildew. and it was hot. It was a summertime, and there was no that swamp cooler cut it. And they had one of those 12-inch black and white televisions with an antenna. It was unreal. It was just the worst. It's the worst. And a guy, I wrote this book. Like first night, this guy comes in and he's pounding on the door. Open the door. There's no phone in the place, right? And this guy comes in and he's bleeding from the head. He goes, "They hit me with a fucking ball peen hammer. Ball peen." First of all, I always love the word ball peen hammer, so I'm trying not to laugh. And he's bleeding. Some drug dealer gone bad outside. He comes in and he wants a phone. I ain't got a phone now. He's screaming at the people outside. I'm like, "Hey, listen, man, I feel like I live here. You're going to be whatever. You know what I mean?" It was just insane. Just insane.
I actually walked into one, and this I'm not even going to say where it is because I think the guy's still there. And he knows what I'm talking about, and he might even listen to this. I walk in, and it's notoriously bad, and people complained about it. It was so bad by the time I got to it. I literally opened up the door, looked in, and went, "No, no, no." And he felt so guilty. He actually got me a hotel room because I'm going.
I was in a hotel room day too on this place too. Yes. Do you ever go to the ones where they go? Oh, you're staying at the guy's house, and then you go. The next room is my mother sleeps in the next room, so don't use the bathroom between 7 at night and it's like 6 in the morning. Because she's up in a lot, and she never closed the door. Wait a minute, your mother's living here. I'm staying in a room in this guy's house. It's like
I can't. It's like I just ugh. Now I gotta ask you this because I watched this when it came out. I Am Comic.
Yeah,
I watched it when it came out, and it reminds me very much of in a way of Jerry Seinfeld comedian. Insofar as the inside look, and so because I remember Jerry was leaving.
It's a great documentary. That's a great documentary. Yeah,
and you were coming back because
well,
no, because the thing is, I have something very similar because I took a big break because I was trying to be captain actor, and and there was this big gap right in the middle, and just like anything else. Because I'm at the point I'm going to restart doing stand up next year because there was a big gap in there, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, vey, because I know I was very good, but then this time goes by and you're going, it's almost like you start thinking, I can't go back in expecting people because if people expect you to be that guy immediately, you're not going to be that guy immediately, So, it's going to be 6 months to a year of becoming that guy again. So you have to take the same beating you took 35 years ago. And I'm not looking forward. I'm looking forward to it because I love stand up, but I also know the first year is going to be like, oh yeah.
Well, the same thing. 30 years from when I first started, I tried to come back. I'd taken 13 years off. Again, we're talking about a whole nother generation coming and I'm moved in my time off. Same problem you're talking about. Now, Seinfeld was coming back after having a #1 hit show on television.
That's the same thing, right?
Yeah, no. When I retired, nobody noticed that I retired but me. That's the only person noticed. Everybody just moved the place up in line. They didn't even look up from their iPhones. They just moved up in line one step.
Mr. Shydner,
that's when I retired. Yeah.
I know your pain because if you think no one with you, I didn't even know I retired.
You had to remind yourself that you're coming back, right?
I was like, yeah, didn't that say Anthony Thomas used to do stand up? Oh yeah, that's right. And
yeah, I know.
It's just a weird thing because it's a different. It's weird because you come back and you start performing and you realize just how many people you actually know because they're going, oh, and then you come back and I remember there were people that I know there's going to be people that remember what I used to be able to do. As soon as I come back out and they're going to expect that. And I'm telling them right now, like, you see, that S. Anthony was very, very good. This S. Anthony is starting over again. But the thing is, you do have years of experience. You've done the Tonight Show. You've done the Why Not Stand. I've done some TV stuff. I've been very good. When you come back, you can do it. But it's like having a lottery ticket and you're trying to drive to get your Powerball ticket, but there's lots of traffic, and you're sitting there going, I got the ticket. could you get out of the way? And that the stuff that's in the way is reps, memorization, timing,
Reps.
and it's a pain in the neck, but it's worth it because this is what you're supposed to be doing, and it's what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can't wait to get back out there.
Fresh laughs are fresh laughs. And once I started getting them again, it's everything that I remember it to be when I first started. It healed me. It healed me. It always has healed me.
Mm-hmm.
It all, we always talk about what we give the audience, the laughter we give the audience. But when I hear that laughter, man, I am right with the world. Most of the time, I'm not right with the world. I'm a little off. I feel a little outside.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear that laughter, I feel connected to people in a way I don't feel connected any other time. And so once it started happening again, but it took a while, like you said, man, I had to knock the rust off, whatever you want, whatever metaphor you want, man. I had to get the muscle built back up again. Reps, reps, reps.
Yeah, that is, and it's really weird because
And the young kids are like going, Grandpa, we're having a hard enough time finding stage for us. Now we got to deal with you.
Yeah, I can't wait for somebody to say that because I'm gonna go, look, punk. I literally, my time away is longer than your time in. So shut up, punk. And and besides, I know just enough people where I can still get stage time. So shut up, punk. And
yeah, you're right. You're right about that. That was luck. There were a lot of guys who Bruce Fine and Melinda Hill. There were a lot of people who gave me stage time when I was coming back, and I was so grateful for it.
That's what's good about being being not only a good comic and a great comic, but also being good to people along the way. Because I've gotten, when you think about the percentage of work you've gotten from sending out tapes or doing that kind of thing versus when comics actually make a phone call for you or give you some, I'm telling you, it's like 60-40 comics, the ones that are, I've made phone calls for guys recently with bookers that I knew from back in the day that remembered me. Do you know this guy? I'm like, yeah, let me call you back in an hour. Yo, Jim. Yeah, he's good. Go ahead. And then they just booked the guy.
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Yeah. So they were. And so that's the thing. I mean, I'm admitting this in front of a lot of people. Okay. And one of my favorite comics of all time. I'm admitting this and I'm going to say it. Part of me is scared to death, but the other 80% of me is like, give me the microphone. Give me the damn microphone. I have buckets of bits that I've written that I'm confident in. Give me the damn microphone. And I know you felt the same way because you know how good you know the level you achieve. So you know you're capable of it. I think that's the best part about it because you're not going to fail. You've already done it. You know that you're doing it because you love doing it. So that's, to me, it's very zen insofar as I just like telling jokes to people that they've never heard before and stories. And I like, as you said, hearing people laugh. To me, as a comic, laughter is my favorite song.
It's truly. I always like it at the music. It's the music I love the best.
Now, I got to ask you this. Now we move off stand-up for a little bit. And we now move on to you getting married with children. Now, what in the blue hell? Because, like I said, I knew who you were from the Tonight Show. And I'm going, is that Ritch Shydner? Oh, okay. So how did that come about? And what kind of effect did that actually have on you? Because that was, the Tonight Show was one thing. You got the HBO One Night Stand, Showtime. Now you're on a network television program, and you're literally playing off the person the show is built around.
That was, look, first of all, Ed O'Neill's just a great guy. And he was a lot of fun to work with, and he was very supportive. When I got the role, I really lost the role. I mean, there were two guys, who created the show. And one of them, his best buddy, was up for the role that I got. He was really the guy they wanted for the role. And so we're sitting in, you go to network. So when you go to network, that's now the producers come in. You've auditioned for the producers a bunch of times. Now they come in with a network and they're going to make the final decision. So they narrow it down to 3 comics or 3 actors, whatever. They narrow it down to them, and we're sitting there, and Ron Levinson and Michael Moy, the 2 creators of the show, come down the hallway, and the actor sitting across from me jumps up and runs and hugs Michael, and they're like, "Hey!" And he's like, and Michael's going, "You're gonna love LA, man. My wife's got the room ready for you at the house." I'm like, "Oh, this is over. It's done. The guy, it's his role, man." So I didn't care. I was going to walk, and they came out and said, "You're next." I went, "All right." I didn't care. I made fun of everything. Fox wasn't a television station yet. There wasn't a network yet. This was a show that was going to be on the first night of their programming, Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
I made fun of the fact that there was no network. I made fun of the fact everything. I made fun, and I was funny. I was loose. I didn't care. And Fox went, well, that's the guy. And Michael Moy, I understood, Ron told me later, he fought for his buddy, but Fox had already made up their mind. I was just too funny. They put me in that role. And then, of course, as soon as I won that role, Michael Moy wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, seven shows in, I taped 7 shows. My contract was 7 of the first 13. Did the first 7. Every Friday, you got the script. I'd go over the script on the weekend. Monday, show up for a table read. That Friday, then you get a script. I called my agent 4 or 5 o'clock. I go, look, I didn't get my script yet. He said, delivery problem. I'll call you right back. He calls back. That is a problem. You got fired.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you find out in Hollywood. You don't get the script.
The fix was in.
Yeah, that's all right. I had a blast doing it. Had a lot of fun. And for a while, I was getting nice big residuals. I think they're down now to about 38 cents. But,
This is what I want to ask you. Now, you talked about getting shingles before you auditioned, before you were coming up to the Tonight Show. So you remember that?
I had to go to the doctor and get pads put on because shingles are bleeding blisters, painful. And when I did my first Tonight Show, I had like this pads on my butt cheek and my upper thigh. That's where it broke out on me, and it was painful, just painful.
Now but I want you. But now remember, you're doing this. You're auditioning for Married with Children. Know one of the creators is basically trying to shove you down the steps. Okay. It's like when I'm sitting there going, the two guys that create the show, he's hugging on the guy and he's basically like, so this guy's better than my friend, huh? Doctor, by the way, if he's listening to this, I just want to say right now, if you're creating another show, you were right to get rid of Ritch.
He might have been. The show was a great show for a lot of years.
I just want to say that Ritch didn't deserve that spot. Your friend was much better. And just want to put that out there. Sorry, Ritch, I'm a big fan, but I got to think about myself right now. The hell with Ritch Shydner, and that guy was great, whoever he was. Okay. But what I want to say is when you're with, but I want you to compare the pressure that you felt doing the Tonight Show, because like I said, like the young audience doesn't realize how big that is. But now network. Now you didn't know Fox was going to turn into a big network, but
no,
you did know they were network people. And did you feel anything when you knew the network had showed up?
Well, of course. And
I mean, how would you
taping those shows, I've never felt great as an actor. When I was a stand-up, I was in control of what was going on. Not you're in control, but I wrote everything. I decided what to say, when to say it, everything. And I felt comfortable and I knew I was in the moment. I stayed in the moment. I was in the moment. But when I was acting, I was very self-conscious. I started to get better, but I was always self-conscious. I go, it was just a different feeling. I never had the confidence in the acting that I had when I was doing stand-up.
Yeah, I just still remember watching it, and and I didn't know at the time. Obviously, I learned over the years because I had seen you on some of the other shows, obviously. But then I found out, and I didn't know this, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't know this. The shows that you wrote for, I didn't know, So you wrote for Roseanne.
Yeah.
And now that's another big show. So was it comics again? Was it your comic friends?
A lot of you hit it, as Anthony, you hit it. I came back, I got heckled by Sean Penn in South Carolina. And I had all my deals were finished, my network development deals. They weren't going to do another pilot for a series with my name on the front of it. And a friend of mine said, everybody likes the way you write. Why don't you try to get a job writing for TV? So I just called everybody that I knew that had a TV show at the time. Seinfeld, Tim Allen, Roseanne, I think were the 3 that I knew. I called and left messages. And Roseanne called me back that night. I was just looking to lay some groundwork for the following fall. This was like February, whatever. And nobody was staffing. But I got lucky and Roseanne had just fired a bunch of writers. So she called me up and said, yeah, you got a job. Show up tomorrow at the studio. And I started writing and started working. And I didn't know anything about writing sitcoms. First, I was just punching jokes with other comics. We just would if the joke wasn't funny, we'd go in and try to come up with some alternatives that they call it punching
Mhm.
up the script or whatever. And that's what I did. And I was grateful for the job. I was grateful to be able to learn something. And again, once again, it was a friend who gave me a job, a comic friend.
That was the same thing with Jeff. When you worked with Jeff.
Foxworthy.
Yeah, with Jeff
Yep.
Foxworthy, same
Same
thing.
thing. Same thing. Roseanne was winding down. Foxworthy was bringing his show over to the same studio over CBS Radford in the Valley, and he passed me. I was walking something to Roseanne show. I was walking on that lot, and Jeff was driving on, and he stopped his car. I said, "Hey, my show's gonna be over here next season. You want to write for it?" I said, "Yeah."
Like we go, listen, Jeff, listen, no. I don't want this writing. So why would you waste my time pulling over? You just get back in your car and get no.
He's a very special guy. He really
Mhm.
is. He's a very confident guy and a nice guy. He knows who he is. He took the advice for him when he first started was lose that accent. Nobody's going to hire you. You're not going to get a job on television with that Southern accent. And he's like, nah, I'm just going to stick with what I'm doing and who I am.
Isn't it
And
weird?
it worked out.
Isn't it weird that what you notice is someone unique comes along, they're special.
That's
They
right.
blow the doors off the place. And
Yeah.
instead of going, hey, let's find special, super talented people that are unique. Nah, let's just copy the guy that's do good right now and do 16 different versions of of what you just saw. It's like, and I want to ask you this. This is the one, Titus.
Yeah.
I
Well,
did
again,
not.
the same thing. I mean, I knew Christopher Titus, worked with him on the road, and his show was starting up, and he asked if I'd write on his show. And again, the same sort of thing. I mean, maybe my agent submitted it, but he was definitely there when I met for the job, and he knew exactly what he wanted his show to be. I mean, Christopher has a very unique awareness of himself and his comedic viewpoint. He's very, very special in that way. And he knew it from that show. Now he had battles again. They always have battles. Roseanne, fortunately for her, out of the box, she was a #1 hit. So she could win those battles, But for Christopher, if you don't have the ratings right off the bat, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get it the way you need that show to be to work for you. And again, like you said, they see these comics, men and women, and they see them what they do to a crowd, and they know that this is unique, and they go, now we got to make them for TV to change what they're doing. And they go, you just saw, you hired the guy or woman, you hired them because of their uniqueness, like you just said, and then they go, yeah, but now they got to reach everybody. Middle America is different. We got to change this and move this.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that's what they want to do, but
Yeah.
what they actually do is more along the line of this. This is the most delicious apple pie I've ever had in my life. We have to find a way to mass produce this because if anyone tastes this apple pie, they're going to be a big fan. But first, dump 5 pounds of salt on it. It's just an amazing thing, and I just find it fascinating. Now, also, like I said, I told you before we started recording, I'm going to pick your brain because I want to find out about these things. I warned you before I hit the record button. So now you wrote for, and this is something I did know, but I was curious about it because I expected you to write for sitcoms. I expected those things, maybe movies and things of that nature. But what I didn't know was you wrote for singers like a Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
So
I think I got that through Jeff Foxworthy. Kenny said I need somebody to write some, patter, the jokes in between.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And that's what I did. I didn't write songs,
Yeah.
But Kenny was unbelievable because he was living in Vegas. He was working in Vegas, and I was in LA. And I'd fly in once a week, and I'd spend a night or two, and go over all this material I'd written. And he'd look at it and he'd laugh at some stuff. This is funny. This is good. This is great. And then I'd watch him on stage. He wouldn't do any of it. He didn't do any of it. Maybe one joke, But every week, big fat check. And every week he's paying me. And this goes on for a couple of months. It's just, I'm making a lot of money. And it just goes on and on and on. And finally, I show up one week and he goes, Rich, I got a new hit song out. It was something about baseball. I can't remember what
Mhm.
it was. It was something about a kid playing baseball. I got a new hit song. And once I get a hit song, I don't need any different pattern. I use the same jokes. He says, whenever I don't have any hit songs for a while, I get nervous. I got to change the jokes. But when I got a hit song, I don't worry about the jokes. So
Mhm.
he goes, thanks a lot. He writes me another big check. Seriously, this is a lot of money. And he goes, thank you very much. And you're welcome to stay for the weekend if you want. On me, of course. He was a first class guy.
Mhm.
I had money he gave me for eating. I ate meals with the guy. It was a first class guy. I mean, very, very nice. But he just he was just looking, something to do when he didn't have a hit song. Need a new joke.
Truth be told, it makes sense because especially if you're, as you know, as a live performer, you gotta, as you said earlier, you gotta keep those plates spinning, and you gotta do something because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know
He felt like he needed to spruce up his show a little bit. I don't know if he ever did any of my jokes. I can't remember. Tell you the truth, not much. If he did, it really wasn't much. It wasn't like when I was writing with Jeff Foxworthy, and he was if him and I put together 10 minutes in the daytime, he tried all 10 minutes that night. I mean, it was a different mythology. And it was a different entertainer. Obviously, Jeff's thing is being funny. But Kenny's was like, yeah. I got a hit song now. That's all I needed.
now how do you now? I've never. I mean, I've given comics jokes. You write some stuff and you're like, I'm never doing this. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, I mean,
yeah,
this is
yeah. Of
funny, but
course,
it's never
of
coming out
course,
of my mouth ever.
of course,
You
of
know.
course, of course.
So you, as I can hear you talk, are a guy from New Jersey,
Yeah,
and you're talking to a guy from Philadelphia.
yeah,
And as you know, it's what part are you from? South Jersey, North
yeah.
Jersey?
South Jersey, down by Wilmington, Delaware,
Oh
Pennsville,
my
little small
God.
town.
Okay, so so basically we're pretty much the same.
Yeah,
South Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware, that entire area, we're all the same guys.
yeah.
So when you write for Jeff Foxworthy as a dude from New Jersey, with because you know how, first of all, the northeast quarter of the United States, we're a different animal than, than anybody else. You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
we we're just we move. I literally had to teach myself how to talk this slow when I moved out to LA in '93 before I moved back because I I have to because it is, if you and I were we were doing this show and we were eating dinner. Do you know how fast we'd start talking? you know, hey, Rich,
Yeah, yeah,
that's what it would sound like to everybody else because we both learned slow
yeah.
down. So when you think of New Jersey, New Jersey guy, and our sensibilities from this area, and now you have to take those jokes, and Jeff Foxworthy is notoriously not from New Jersey, uh, you know,
Yeah.
and not from the Northeast corridor. How do you, do you have to literally change the way do you just write the joke? Hey, this is funny here, Jeff, or do you have to
Yeah.
change
I mean,
everything
I
for him?
mean, he obviously any comic, if you write a joke for them, they have to put it in their own language. If I
Mhm.
gave a joke to somebody, they're going to move it into their tempo, their phrasing. That's it. Jeff would do the same thing. He would take
Mhm.
my joke. Now, look, a lot of the jokes were about being married,
Mhm.
relationship with your wife. So I had a lot of jokes about that. So it's not like the attitude is different, or we're both of the same. Jeff's a couple of years younger than me, but we're
Mhm.
both pretty much the same age, not that much difference. And so it wasn't like a whole generational shift that he had to think about. It was
Mhm.
just him putting it into his Southern language, as opposed to my, like you said, fast talking Jersey mushmouth. So he had to like just do a little translation, but he does it. Every comic does it. If you give them the joke, they edit it to fit their tempo, and they'll phrase things their way.
If I see him doing a special called "The Jersey Turnpike Sucks," I'm gonna know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Is
I
this
don't
Jeff?
think.
You ever
Yeah.
notice how bad traffic circles are?
Yeah, but it's stuff. This stuff is so universal. It's stuff is he did a joke about when guys come in after long long trip going somewhere, they always go, the first thing they tell you is how fast they got there. Made it in 6 hours and 36 seconds. You know, and then it's like that works all over the country because men are the same about that. So a lot of this stuff is just universal. That's what I go. I go for the way people behave. I never like making fun or doing jokes about things people can't change. Never like that. So if it's something in behavior, it's usually the human condition is the same everywhere in the world, really, when it comes down to it. It's the same 7 deadly sins. It's not that all the same. It's just different way we speak, different way we phrase, different colloquialisms or whatever.
But you never did material that was locked into a specific region. You had life material.
No, because we were doing, first of all, there's 3 networks back then, and you're trying to reach as many people as possible. It wasn't until the 90s when people started balkanizing a little bit, balkanization, that I called it, where people go, look, I don't want to reach everybody. I don't have to reach everybody. I'm just going to reach this segment of society. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to be the Filipino comedian, or I'm going to be the gay comedian, or I'm going to be, this, you know what I mean? So they go, I don't want to try to reach everybody. If I could just get this little segment here, that'd be enough. I'll be the clean comedian or whatever they wanted to be. That started changing in the 90s, but back in my day, you tried to reach everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I used to get a kick out of the guys that would come to town, or I'd be working with somebody, or I'd have a person that was opening for me, and he would find me at the bar, and I'm sitting there just talking to people, and he would come and he goes, and you have the Mad Lib guys, where they come in there, and he goes, hey, yes, have you played this town before? Yeah, I played this town. Yeah, I played this town like 15 times. Okay, because I don't want to ask anybody here. What's the tough area? Okay. What's the lottery called? I'm like, oh my God, dude, just do your jokes, bro. This guy literally, he had a clipboard. I'm not even kidding. There was a clipboard. I'm going, you printed up a clipboard with, it was like the tough area, and it had the long line with the
yeah.
I'm going, oh my God,
which interstate's the problem in traffic? Which is, back in the day, back in Lenny Bruce's day, the clubs would have in the dressing room, they would leave behind, if you want to make fun of a place to eat, this Greasy Spoon, this is the diner to say. If you want to make fun of this, they'd have a list of all that for the comedians to use those local references. Now, you think after a while, the audience would be like, yeah, we get it. You're making fun of Joe's Diner again. We get it. The place sucks. The last 50 comedians have done jokes about Joe's Diner. We get it.
The guy wasn't even smooth with it.
No.
He didn't even know how to slide it. And he goes, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to get caught in Franklin Street. And like, oh my God.
They read him off the thing. Reading off his jacket.
It was like it was me and the MC. This guy's the feature, and we're literally in the sound booth laughing our asses off. He thinks he's doing okay, but he's like, thanks for the heads up. I'm going, yeah, okay. But it was really bad, man. I tell you, my wife would definitely not want to buy a dress at the Shoe Barn. And, oh God, come on, bro. It was the worst thing ever. But I just got a kick out of those guys. Now I want to ask you. I can't let you go until I ask you about the history of comedy.
Yeah. What about it?
You got to tell me now.
Look, I'm doing a show, and I really talk a lot about. I talk about how it changed over the years, who started it. I talk about the line. There's always a line, things you can say and things you can't say in public. There's always been that line, and the best comics, they dance on that line. They have to go over to find that line, and they dance on it. It changes all the line's invisible. It's always changing. I talk about that. There's always been PC culture. There's always been cancel culture. There's always been these things, and I talk about them. I talk about how things change for women in comedy, or how things change. I mean, either change any aspect of comedy, how it changed and what it said about America. Because the comics are great. The comics who are big at the time, they hit the zeitgeist. They hit it perfectly, because you can tell what America cares about by what they're laughing about. You can tell what they're afraid of by what they're laughing about, or what they're obsessed with, what America's obsessed with. You can tell by what the comedians are doing at that time. So that's what the show. It's a very funny show. I do jokes. I talk about every comic from the first comic, not every comic, but the big changers, the game changers, the ones that over the years. I talk about them and what they said about America.
Yeah, it's really weird because I just love the art form. I mean, it's one of the things where it's like, I mean, when you can tell a person loves the art form. Think about the late artist Prince. He's playing basketball stadiums and stuff, and he'd go to a nightclub and play again. It's like,
Yeah.
you know who you are, buddy. You're playing basketball, and then he's playing these, and it's the same thing. No matter how big a comic gets, no matter how much money you have in the bank, you will find that guy or that gal sometime somewhere at a small club somewhere with a notepad under their arm, telling jokes just like they did before they pulled up in a Tesla.
That's right.
And that's the thing that I love about the art form. It's just, we are, no matter how successful comics get, in my estimation, I think that we are, as far as artists are concerned, we're the closest to, even if we become highly some ultra star or something like that, we are very close to the college basketball player that knows he's not going to the NBA, but still loves playing basketball. He knows that these two guys are going to go to the NBA. He's not, but he still plays basketball. He still dives on the floor. He's still at the rec center playing basketball. He's a lawyer. He's a doctor, and he still does it. Granted, we can still go to the NBA at 60, 70, 80 because all we need is one hit film, one good spot on television, uh, one viral video, and all of a sudden, you're 94 years old. Hey, it's Grandpa Ha Ha. He's the hottest comic in the country. Grandpa Ha Ha, 65 billion hits on YouTube. Because everybody that I know that's still doing it after all this time, no matter what the level of success, loves the art form so much that they can't stop doing it, and they love every second of it.
It's an original American art form.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are only two performance art forms that are originally American. I think jazz music and stand-up comedy, I think. And stand-up comedy is an original American art form. We started it, and just like jazz, we exported it all over the world. I mean, there are people. I met this young woman who does stand-up comedy in Pakistan. I met a guy on the internet who's a Moroccan stand-up comic. Now they had different ways they have to do it, and they have more censorship than we have, but it's an American art form. One person, going on stage just to try to make a live audience laugh. That's it. That's basically it.
Now, one last thing before I let you go, and really, thank you for coming on. This is like I said, been a fan since the Candyman days, man. I'm an original. Okay, I didn't come on after HBO One Night Stand. I was there from the beginning. Damn it! All right. What do you think about? I mean, like right now, because you're on Facebook, but you're not on some of these other things.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, I know the social media. I mean, I don't work Twitter and I don't work Instagram really. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I put anything on either one of them. I go on to see my friends and put a little story or something on Facebook once in a while, but I don't work social media.
Yeah,
maybe to my detriment, I don't know, but I'd rather spend my time doing something else. That's all. I don't have a lot of, it's not like I got, when you're 20, man, when I was 20, I slaughtered time like buffalo. I wasted time all sorts of ways. As you get older, you go, I'm not putting my time here. I'm going to put it here. That's
it's just
time management.
It's a weird. I was an adult when the internet started. As my nephews would say, ha 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 ha, back right down the steps, ha ha ha, right to the living room, and I understand it, but I to me they're doing it's kind of a tool and kind of like like a little hobby type thing for me, even though
it's a marketing tool, no doubt about it. It's a good marketing tool.
Yeah, but
listen, I didn't get into this business for money, and it's been working out so far. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I can relate to that. I know those $20 checks that you get in New York and LA. It's $20, punk, get out. I know those feelings. Mr. Shydner, Mr. Ritch Shydner, I want to thank you for coming on. This is a blast. I knew it was going to be a blast. I was looking forward to it. That's why I asked you back then. And still a big fan. Now I'm actually a bigger fan now, having met you, than I was when I started. And I want to thank you for coming on, my brother.
Thanks, Anthony. Thank you, man.
Okay, take care, my friend.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.